Well, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here this morning to share with you some simple strategies for getting healthy meals on the table in less time, with less stress, and for less money. And the reason I'm so passionate about helping moms is because we, as moms, we have such an awesome opportunity to make a significant impact in the health of our children, not only while they're little, but throughout their school-age years and even into adulthood. I think we all understand that nutrition is truly the building block of health and wellness. So I don't find that it's a lack of desire. Most moms want to feed their kids healthier, and they want to eat healthier too. Instead, the challenges to eating healthier tend to revolve around things like lack of time, lack of energy, and lack of know-how. And time, I know, it's definitely a precious commodity when you're a mom. I mean, you have busy, long days, you're chasing kids around. It can feel like I just don't have enough time to plan healthy meals. And the other thing is a lack of energy that comes along with that, right? So you've got these long nights and these busy days, and it can really leave you feeling like my energy levels are just totally zapped, and I just don't have enough reserves in the tank to make dinner tonight. But you know, the biggest challenge that I've found when helping moms learn to meal plan is lack of know-how. And that's because most of us have grown up in homes where we weren't taught specifically how to cook, how to meal plan, and how to make a food budget. So we're kind of just flying solo, trying to figure it all out on our own. And that's where I was. I mean, now we can look at this picture and go, wow, I have grown kids. In fact, my son there in the middle, that's his fiance standing next to me. They're getting married in September. Yeah, it's exciting. So when my kids were little and people would tell me, oh, they grow up so fast. And I'm like, it doesn't feel like it when you've had 2 hours of sleep for 6 days in a row, right? But they do grow up fast. But if we were to rewind and go back in time to when my kids were little, around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you would find me standing in front of my pantry like this, trying to figure out what in the world am I going to make for dinner tonight, right? Can anybody relate to that? I see some hands raised. Yeah, and that's like the worst time of day to try to think about what you're going to make for dinner. I mean, the kids, that's that time of day when the kids are acting up, you're tired, dad's rolling in the door, everyone's hungry, and you're standing in front of the pantry hoping for some divine inspiration on what can I make for dinner. And you know what? If you do come up with an idea, you're like, yes, I know what I'm going to make. And you start pulling the ingredients out, only to find one of the key ingredients is missing. Now what do? You're like, great. You either have to pile the kids in the car and drive to the grocery store at the busiest time of day, or you could ask your husband, but let's face it, he's not any more excited about that prospect than you are. And so what happens? You end up, whatever, you give up, and you're like, okay, I'll just order a pizza, I'll order DoorDash, whatever, right? And so it really isn't that you don't have a good intention to want to feed your family healthier, as much as it is you haven't teed yourself up with some helpful strategies and methods to make that whole process a lot easier. And so that was my life. That's where I was. And it got to the point where I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. There's got to be an easier way. And that's when I discovered meal planning. And so with meal planning, all it is you're thinking about what meals can I make for dinner in the week ahead so that I can purchase all the ingredients that I need to make those meals so that when 4:30 or 5 o'clock rolls around, you're not standing in front of the pantry with a blank look on your face or a desperate look on your face trying to figure out what to make for dinner. Instead, you already know what you're going to make, and you know you have everything that you need to make it. And so that's my goal this morning. My goal is to share with you some tips on how to meal plan, as well as some of my favorite time-saving strategies that will make this whole process a lot easier for you, so that by the time you leave this morning, you'll feel empowered and inspired and hopefully well-equipped to start putting meal planning to work for you. So, are you ready to dive in? Yes. Okay, well, let's get started then. So, in case you're wondering, well, I don't really know what meal planning is all about, and how is it really the joys of meal planning? Well, I want to share with you just a few benefits so that if you're kind of on the fence here, hopefully we'll be able to push you over onto the meal planning side of the fence with all these awesome benefits that come from doing it. And the first one is it really does save time. And the reason meal planning saves time is because if you have a plan of what you're going to make, you can go ahead and purchase all the ingredients you need to make that meal plan. And so then it doesn't require those multiple trips to the grocery store, right? The other way that meal planning also helps you save time is because if you have a plan of what you're going to make for the week ahead and you have all of the foods that are required to make those meals, then what you can do is you can start putting to work for you some of these time-saving strategies like prepping ahead. And prepping ahead is where you just do a few of the tasks so that you don't have to do those at the end of the day when you're tired. So it really will help you save time to have a meal plan. Another thing is it helps you save money. And that's because if you have a plan, you can go and buy the ingredients that you need, right? So that way you're not left with trying to go to the store multiple times, but also maybe you grocery shop like I did. So here's how I used to grocery shop. Go to the grocery store, walk up and down the aisles, put all the same stuff in my cart that I usually buy, plus anything that looks good, right? And I had good intentions of using everything, but every week, at the end of the week, what would happen? I would find myself throwing away expired foods and produce that looked like it was wilted and, shriveled up. And then, of course, in the back of the fridge, you'd kind of find this object that looked more like a science experiment than a food, right? And so I'd find myself tossing out this food, which was once perfectly good. And that's wasting money. And so when you have a meal plan, you're wasting a lot less food because not only are you using the food that you have in your fridge, but even the leftovers you can use. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing is it really helps you with your healthy living goals. So if some of you are here and you're like, you know what, 2022, it's time to lose that COVID-19 or 20 or however many pounds that came on, this is a great way to do it because the more meals that you eat at home, the healthier that you tend to be. And so planning more meals at home is definitely going to help you with your healthy living goals. And last but not least, stress. Think about how much stress would be eliminated if you knew exactly what you were going to make, you had all the things that you needed to make it, and you were able to put some of these time-saving strategies in your rotation, like prepping ahead, and we'll talk about some of the others later. But you wouldn't be standing in front of the pantry at 4:30 or 5 o'clock trying to figure out what to make. You'd know what you were going to make, and you'd have some steps done ahead of time so that it would all come together for you with less stress. So now we're going to take a look at a meal plan so that you can see what a meal plan looks like. And lest you think this lady's crazy, there's no way I'm going to plan 7 meals a week. Well, let me assure you, I agree with you. I think it's very important to start where you're at. If you're planning dinner 1 time a week, if you're cooking twice a week, 3 times a week, however many times a week that you're cooking, that's where you need to start. Start by planning those meals. So a meal plan really is just thinking about what am I going to make for dinner on what night of the week. But it's so much more than that. When I first started meal planning, I would write down, okay, Monday I'm going to make spaghetti meatballs. Tuesday I'm going to make tacos. Wednesday I'm going to make chicken burritos. None of those foods coordinate with one another. And so I'm cooking an entirely new and different meal from scratch every single night. And that's traditionally how we start out cooking as moms, as wives. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that if you have unlimited reserves of time. But if your time is limited, there's a better way to use your meal plan so that you can still make dinner every night, but you're doing less work to get dinner on the table each night. And that's those time-saving strategies that we're going to talk about in a little bit called cook once, eat twice or more. But back to the meal plan. How do you get started? So maybe now you're like, hey, this sounds awesome. I want to save time. I want to save money. I definitely feel stressed about dinner. You've convinced me meal planning sounds great, but I don't know how to do it. Well, where you want to start is by creating a master list of meals. And so what that is there's a little visual up here. Somebody typed theirs out, but you can keep it as simple as a sheet of paper on your kitchen counter with a pen, and every time you think of a dinner that you make, write it on that list. And you want to put on that list meals that you're already comfortable making, that you know your family likes. And so you're thinking, well, why would I do that? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is when you go to make your meal plan out, instead of having to pull ideas out of thin air, you can look right at your master list of meals and be able to make a meal plan more quickly with less time involved. And then the other reason is when you start to incorporate some of these time-saving strategies, these cook once, eat twice or more strategies that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, you're going to need a master list of meals so that you can learn how to group meals to save time. So that's why it's such a great starting point. And again, you're going to want to start with a couple of meals. So if you're not meal planning at all and you're cooking dinner twice a week, plan out those 2 times a week that you're going to make dinner, what you're going to make, and buy the things that you need to make it. And that's how you'll get started. And then the other thing you can do after you get your meal plan made is you can start putting prepping ahead to work for you. That is one of the most basic time-saving strategies that's a real game changer. And what we mean by prepping ahead is it's just taking a little bit of time to do some of the tasks required to put that meal together ahead of time. So that way, when you go to make dinner at the end of the day, when you're tired, you're exhausted, it all comes together a lot more smoothly. So what are some things that you can do to prep ahead? You can cut up meats and put them into individual portions. You can chop up fruits and veggies for side dishes or salad toppings and salad fixings. You can make sauces or marinades when you prep ahead. You can even do things like cook rice and quinoa, things like that, pasta. And you can have those things ready and in the fridge so that when you go to pull dinner together, some of the steps are already done for you, so it comes together a lot faster. Well, how do you find time to meal prep? You know, especially as moms, we don't have huge chunks and blocks of time. Well, it doesn't have to be a large block of time. You could ask a friend, neighbor, your husband, hey, can you watch the kids for me for 20 minutes? And then something that I like to do, Sharon and I talked about this productivity thing because she uses it too. It's so great. You just set a timer. And if you have 15 minutes, 20 minutes, set a timer because it'll keep you focused and you'll be shocked at how many things can you do in 15 or 20 minutes. It's amazing. And it's almost like a game, like you're playing beat the clock, you know? And sometimes my timer goes off and I'm like, oh, but I'm going to take 3 more minutes because, you know, I like want to get one more thing done. But you'll really get into it and it'll help you to be able to get some of these steps done ahead of time before it's time to make dinner. Another thing you can do is you can just pull little increments of time here and there as you have it. When the kids are napping, if your children are playing, right? If you have a friend over and she's wanting to hold your baby and fawn all over your baby, great, let's go in the kitchen and we can talk and you can hold the baby and I can cut up some lettuce and some toppings for salad, right? So it's just little bits of time that you can grab here and there that all adds up to less time that you're going to have to take when it comes to putting dinner together later. So I love prepping ahead. Now, my favorite part of this presentation is cook once, eat twice or more. And what I mean by that is you are going to make a lot of one main ingredient, double or triple a batch of it, so that way you can use it for multiple meals throughout the week. And this is really a game changer because instead of making a whole new dinner every single night a week, you're using elements from one dinner that you made for another dinner. And you can even just multiply that out. And so we're going to talk about that right now. There's lots of ways to do this cook once, eat twice, or more strategy. And the first is leftovers. And everybody knows what leftovers are, right? You make dinner, you make extra portions, put it in the fridge, you take it out, you reheat it, eat the same exact meal all over again, right? And that's great if you have a night where you just have zero time to do anything. It's nice to have leftovers. You just pull it out, warm it up, and you've got dinner. But a lot of us have people in our family, maybe we ourselves are one of those people, where we don't like to eat the same exact thing all over again, even if it's 3 or 4 days later. I'm not naming any names because this is being recorded, but that's fine. We all have those people, right? Well, there's a little trick you can do. Instead of just serving the same thing all over again, you can repurpose your leftovers. And so I'll give you an example of repurposing. So let's say you're making tacos for dinner. And so you have all your taco stuff made, taco fixings, and a couple of days later, you can pull those taco ingredients out. Instead of having tacos again, you could do taco salad. It's a slightly different version of tacos so that you don't feel like you're eating the exact same thing again. You can even get even fancier than that. Like, let's say you make chili. I love to make slow cooker chili. Sadly, those 2 little boys in that video do not agree that chili is yummy because they were crying like big tears about it. But we love chili. So if I make chili, instead of just serving chili again, all over with cornbread, however you do it, what you could do is you could bake some baked potatoes or some baked sweet potatoes, and you can put the chili on top of the baked potatoes with some sour cream and some chives and serve a salad on the side. And now you have like an almost entirely different meal, right? So you don't feel like you're eating the same exact thing all over again. Another thing you can do with leftovers is you can freeze them. And then you don't have to eat them for 2 or 3 weeks or a month later, right? There's a lot of things that freeze well and make great leftovers, especially soups and stews and casseroles. So you can freeze those. The other thing that you can do with leftovers is you can not only freeze them for yourself, but you could freeze them for another family. So if you have a friend who is having a baby, had surgery, or someone's sick, if you have a meal that you've prepared and it freezes well and you freeze it, then you have a ready-made meal to share with somebody who's in need. Batch cooking. So when we talk about eat twice or more, what we're really talking about is batch cooking. And batch cooking, again, is where you take one main ingredient and you double or triple it. And it doesn't just apply to meats. It can apply to vegetables as well, or side dishes. So I love examples because that really helps me to learn. So I'm going to share with you some examples of batch cooking. So one example would be, if you're going to make grilled chicken for dinner, why not grill 2 or 3 pounds of that chicken instead of just grilling 1 pound, right? It's not going to take you that much more time to grill an extra pound or 2 of chicken. And think about the time you would save, because when you're preparing a meal, there's a lot of time investment involved. You've got the prep time, you've got the cooking time, and you've got the cleanup time, right? So if you're going to put together this chicken, marinate it, all the dishes and things that are involved with that, it doesn't take a whole lot of extra time to add a pound or 2 extra of chicken. And then when you're done grilling it, you can use the chicken for dinner that night, and then you'll have extra chicken that you can cut up and put into individual portions for future meals later on. And so that's where batch cooking really helps. Another example of batch cooking would be cooking a whole chicken. I like to cook chickens in my slow cooker. You can put the biggest whole chicken that you can squeeze into your slow cooker, cook it. When it's done, pull all the meat off of it. I don't like to throw the bones away. I usually toss those back in the slow cooker, and then I put some veggies in there and some water, and I make homemade stock, which is so much more delicious than purchased stock, and you can use those for soups and stews and casseroles. I like to cook rice with stock because it makes it more flavorful and nutritious. So we're not even going to miss the opportunity with those bones. We're going to use those too. But back to that shredded chicken, there's all kinds of things that I could do with that chicken. So if I've made a master list of meals, I could easily see, well, what are some things that require chicken? And I would know what to do with it right away. These are some of my favorite chicken recipes from my master list of meals. So let's say that I made that roast chicken or that slow cooker chicken for dinner, or if you really want to save time, you can go to Costco, and they have rotisserie chickens for $5. You can grab 1 or 2 of those and pull the meat off of those. But once I've done with my dinner and I've put that chicken aside, if let's say I wanted to make that chicken pesto pasta that's listed first on there, well, I'd already have the chicken done. I wouldn't need to cook any chicken for that recipe. But if I had actually meal planned, and I had a meal plan and I knew I'm going to make slow cooker whole chicken on Sunday, and on Wednesday, I'm going to make chicken pesto pasta. Then when I went shopping, I could buy all the ingredients that I needed for that chicken pesto pasta so that I'd have everything on hand, right? So I could go to Trader Joe's, I could get some pre-prepared pesto sauce, have that in the fridge. And then on my prep time, I could even cook the pasta ahead of time, pop that in the fridge. So think about how quickly that meal would come together. I would basically be pulling out pre-cooked pasta, pre-prepared pesto, my chicken's already cooked, toss it in a skillet, warm it up, dinner in less than 10 minutes. So again, that's where this batch cooking and creating a meal plan will really be your best friend to getting a dinner on the table really quickly with a lot less stress. Now there's another cook once, eat twice strategy that a lot of people are familiar with, and that's freezer meals. And freezer meals are, you just either put ingredients raw into the fridge that you're going to cook later, or like we talked about earlier, you can put leftovers in the fridge that you're going to thaw and eat later. Just last night I was looking at this site where this lady, she does 3 hours of freezer meals, and she can get 10 freezer meals done in 3 hours. And I'm thinking, I don't have 3 hours to do that. But I always make freezer meals, but I do it more naturally. It's just easier for me. And what I mean by that is, if I'm going to make a meal that makes a great freezer meal, I plan ahead of time that I'm going to double up the ingredients so that while I'm making that meal for tonight's dinner, I can also be making it to put in the freezer for a future meal. So again, I'll give you an example. Slow cooker sweet and spicy chicken, one of my family's favorites, super easy to make. It's a great freezer meal that you can put in raw and then dump it in your crock pot later when you need a quick meal. So what I do is I'll put my slow cooker on the counter and I'll put a freezer safe container on the other side, and then in the middle is my cutting board. And I'll start with the vegetables. There's basically 3 ingredients in this recipe. There's a sauce, there's vegetables, there's chicken. Super easy. Cut up all my vegetables, half go in the freezer safe container, half go in my slow cooker. Cut up the chicken, half goes in the freezer safe container, the other half goes in my slow cooker. I think you can see where I'm going with this. Double the sauce up, half in my freezer safe container, half in my slow cooker. Grab a lid for my freezer safe container. Slow cooker sweet and spicy chicken, write that on there, pop the lid on it, stick it in the freezer. Take the lid to my slow cooker, put it on my slow cooker, turn it on, done. Wash the dishes. Now I have 2 dinners, one for tonight and one for a future night. Super easy way to do freezer meals. So anytime that you have a meal that makes a great freezer meal, in fact, I shop freezer meals on the internet, and if I see one, I'm like, ooh, that sounds really good. I do it this way. I'll make that meal for tonight, and then I'll make another one and stick it in the freezer for later. And then I hope it's really good because now I've just made it twice. Anyway, so freezer meals are also one of those things that are great too for meals ministry. Because if you have a freezer meal in the freezer, you can pre-cook it for the person and bring it to their house, or you can just give it to them as a freezer meal with instructions of how they can put it in their slow cooker and make it whenever it is that they want to do it. Okay, so grouping meals. We've kind of talked a little bit about this, but I want to kind of pull it all together in your mind so that you have a really clear picture of how all these elements fit together and can really save you time. So we're going to go back to that image of that meal plan. And hopefully you can see it pretty well here, because this is going to give you an example of how you're going to group meals to use the batch cooking strategy in your favor. So for example, we'll start with Sunday here. I am going to make pulled pork in my slow cooker. And I'm going to get 3 meals out of that. And the reason that's going to happen is because I'm going to double it. And then I'm going to save it for Tuesday, and I'm going to use that extra pork to make barbecue pork sliders. And then I'm going to use it again on Friday to make these super yummy pork mango bowls. And so you can see that this one step of making meat on Monday is going to carry over to 2 other dinners later on in the week. For Monday, instead of just grilling steaks for Monday night, I can put a couple of extra steaks on the grill, cut those up, put them in the fridge, and then on Wednesday, here, I can use those to make sweet and spicy steak wraps. So then I'm just going to take the sweet and spicy sauce that I already made on my prep day, or my prep time, and I'm going to just toss that steak that I've already cooked in that sauce, warm it up, and I could even on my prep time cut up the lettuce, make the guac, and put that dinner together in less than 10 minutes. Then again, over here on Thursday, I'm going to do a I'm going to do a salsa verde chicken. And this is like the easiest recipe. It's an old Trader Joe's recipe. You take chicken thighs, you season them up, stick them in your slow cooker, and you pour a jar of Trader Joe's Hatch salsa verde over it. Close it up, cook it 4 to 6 hours, boom, shred it up. So yummy. I make those a lot when we have people over. Everybody loves them. Well, I'm going to save some of that meat, and I'm going to use it to make a salsa verde chicken soup on Saturday, right? So you can see how this is really saving you time because you're doing these steps not just for one meal, but for multiple meals. And if you're not cooking dinner 7 days a week, no sweat. You can put it into the freezer and you can use it for another meal for the future. So you can still double things up or triple things up. You just would label it, freeze it, and then the next time you go to make your meal plan, on my master list of meals, I have a Post-it note, and I always keep what I have in the freezer. So that way, when I go to make my next meal plan, I can say, well, what do I already have in my freezer that's cooked so that I can use that, because that's going to save me time, right? And that way, I'm sort of rotating the stock, so to speak, right? I'm using the things that I already have in the freezer. And again, this doesn't just apply to the meats, but you can see here I'm going to grill extra veggies on Monday, and I'm going to use those in the pork bowls on Friday. I can make extra rice on one day and use it for another day, or quinoa. I can do a whole bunch of salad fixings for one day, and then 2 days later use it for a different type of salad because the fixings for salad are already in the fridge. So this is how it all kind of fits together, of not just making a meal plan and putting a bunch of random dinners on, but using batch cooking and grouping meals so that you can spend less time but still have dinner on the table multiple times during the week. So how do you get started? Again, I want to emphasize just to start slowly right where you're at. If you're doing dinner once a week, twice a week, you're cooking 3 times a week, start where you're at. Because if you start where you're at, you'll be feeling less overwhelmed, you'll be more likely to stick with it. And then as you gain confidence and proficiency in doing this, you can add more meals as you gain that confidence. And so start where you're at. The other thing is I've provided for you a handout. So I know it may have felt a little bit this morning like you've been drinking out of a fire hose because I have just been giving you a lot of information. But it's all right here in this handout, so you can take it home and refresh your memories about what you've learned today. And so I would really recommend just starting with 1 or 2 of those kitchen efficiencies. Like batch cooking is a really easy one to start with. Or consider repurposing some of your leftovers so that you're using those. On the back of this sheet, you'll see there's already a little bit of homework done for you in that I've given you 20 different meals that you can make using 4 main ingredients, just to get those wheels in your head turning, thinking about, okay, well, if I did make ground meat, what are some things that I could do with it? Even better is I have this handout as an electronic version that if you click on the recipes, it will actually take you to those recipes so that you can have the recipes. And you could just have your table leader email me, and then she can disseminate the information to you, or you can email me directly. My email's on the bottom of the form. I'm not going to spam mail you. I'll just send you the handout so that you can have that for your use. But anyways, I just want to encourage you, keep it simple, keep it fun. You've got a lot of different people in this room doing different forms of meal planning. So there's a lot of support in here. So enjoy your small group time, and hopefully I'll see you back again in the fall.